What's up, Simonics, and welcome back to a special video because today we're looking at Ionic Portals. So I wanted to look at Ionic Portals for quite some time, but I feared that I couldn't get into it because it was something for native developers. If you haven't heard about it, Ionic Portals is a new project from Ionic, which is not completely targeted towards web development and building a cross-platform application, but more towards regular native iOS and Android developers to easily integrate a web view at some point of your application. A portal is basically like a part of your web application inside a native iOS and Android application, which can completely seamlessly interact with Swift or Kotlin code and work either just as a full page or just as a little view next to your native project. The benefit of this, of course, you can have micro front ends, you can have separate teams working on separate objects. So you have a huge application, and in different places you simply inject a portal, and on that portal the different web team can work, can build it locally using standard web tooling. That's the whole idea of portals, and today I'm going to show you first of all how the integration looks like. You're going to see the different steps that I took to actually create a native iOS and Android project and integrate portals from a standard Ionic application that also could just run as a web application. If you're not yet familiar with Ionic, you should also definitely check out the Ionic Academy, my place to help you with everything Ionic. So in case your web team needs a bit of support with Ionic, go check it out. They will become great Ionic developers in no time. But for now, let's focus on portals and build a pretty cool application. Alright, so let's take a closer look at Ionic Portals. It is marketed as micro front ends for mobile. That page itself is pretty amazing. I would love to have that page. It's really geared towards having multiple teams work on your application. So if it's just you, perhaps you don't really get the benefits of Ionic Portals. But if you have a team like 10 people, a company of 20, you're working in separate teams, you have a web application, then Portals makes definitely sense for you. I think this graphic shows what Portals is really about. So you have an application in the background, you have maybe something with Swift, or this could also be your Android layer, and then on top you have a different view that comes from a portal. So this is basically your Ionic view inside a native application, and it is combined with that native application. It's not just your Ionic application. The syntax, we're gonna check this out. I've prepared a little demo for you. There are a lot of cool things about the integration of plugins that I want to show you as well as this little overview. We once again can see you could really build a native application. You could have different views built with native tooling, Swift, Kotlin, whatever you want. And then at specific places, you simply inject a portal. And I think this could be really helpful to separate the workload between your native and your web development team. And I think it's a cool idea. Of course, it's not for everyone, especially if you're just a super small team and you're just managing perhaps one application. But for bigger teams, for enterprise, it definitely makes sense to try portals. And as far as I've seen, you can actually get started for free with a community edition. So that's kind of new. Usually the pricing for Ionic IO is a bit higher, especially for enterprise. But it looks to me as you can get started for free. So go give it a try. Now, let's dive into some code, because I want to quickly give you an overview how it really feels. We won't get into every single detail, but just giving you a rough overview. So let's say we have an Ionic application. This is really just a standard Ionic application as you would have it all the time. I even ran it somewhere. Let me check out. Where's my web view now? There we go. This is the application. Of course, on the web right now, it's horrible and it doesn't really do anything, simply because all the functionality here is triggering native stuff. So if I find my Visual Studio Code again, I can also show you how the integration starts. It begins by installing Ionic Portals in a web project, and through Portals you then get access to a few functionalities like get initial contacts, publish, subscribe, and unsubscribe. And that's really the only thing you need. So from get initial context, you can get information from Android or iOS into your portal in the beginning to set up the basic information of the portal. Then you can subscribe within your Ionic application to changes made in the native application, but this also works the other way around. So our iOS and Android application can also subscribe to the changes of the portal, the Ionic application, and therefore we can publish data here from Ionic. And from code, it looks like this. I've wrapped everything with the check Capacitor is native platform, because otherwise you're gonna see some errors on the web. This is the functionality to get an initial context. I've specified that I will get a name and a native value, and then I'm going to assign this to the view name, which should pop up at our title, and then the model, the number is here used for our Ion input. So my value using the context value. Actually, the context name comes from, well, let's not get too deep. There's a difference between context and context value, but I'm going to show you in the native project. What's cool is you can even use Capacitor plugins. I'm going to talk more about that in a second. And at this point, we see how we can broadcast data back to our native application using publish. Using a topic and a data, and we're gonna see how we can catch those different things. So we got something for capture an image, we got something when the value changed, and we got a function to close the view. Now, let's take a look at some native code. I really went into creating a native Swift project. I got started with Swift UI because I thought that was all the rage. But it looks like you couldn't use portals with Swift UI at the time I was recording this. Now, the integration is actually pretty easy inside your application. So this is now maybe a bit confusing if you're watching this video as a web developer, but if you're watching this as a native developer, all of this should be pretty clear to you, because this is where you work every day inside Xcode or Android Studio. You need an API key to register your portal manager. You can grab this from process info, pretty cool with Xcode actually. And then you create a new portal. You give it a name, so this could be anything you want. And then you could also set a starting directory from where to read those files. And here we also see the initial context that I'm setting. This is the value we were reading inside our application right here. Now, if we have a starting dir, we also have some web files, and yes, that's exactly the case. So I copied over the build output folder from this here, which is the www folder of my Ionic application. When I run something like npm run build, this will generate my www folder, which I could also host anywhere. So that's just the build. In fact, I haven't copied over it. I just made a symbolic link. Because I felt like that would be the easier way. Of course, not perfect if you're working with a team, but if you want to give it a try local and just check out how portals work, I recommend this. Just create a symlink between your folder and the folder or a folder inside your Finder, and then you might have to drag in the folder here to make it work with Xcode. But then you can just run a new build and your application will take this folder for your web application. Now, of course, it was too easy to just show a view from portals. So what I instead did, I learned a bit of Swift today, which was actually pretty fun. I might get into Swift again. And I created a little function here. Let's check out this function. So this is a function that will be triggered when I press this button here. So that's already the app on my simulator. What this function does, it will get the portal with the right name. I'm going to inject a bit more initial context using the value of a text field. And then I'm actually going to display the portal. That's pretty much it. So I could also replace the whole view with a portal, but instead I wanted to play around with the storyboard, because that's so much fun to play around with storyboards and constraints that I created the portal view, which should show down here. And we got the button, we got an input field, and we even got an image view. All right. What we see as well is that we can now subscribe to the portals plugin to the different functions or topics here. So dismiss, value change, image, and those are now exactly the ones I used in here. So topic, image, value change, and dismiss. And then for each of them, a different functionality here is called. For dismiss, I simply remove the portal view. For value change, I change my own text field value to that from the web. And for got image, I set an image. So let's give a try to this application. So I got my input field here. I can now open an Ionic portal, and this here is our app. It has the name web app. Actually, why does it have the name web view? It should actually be portal app, but something, I don't know, something's wrong with that. Maybe we can fix this live. Then we can see the number from our native input control was injected to the portal, and I could now change this here, click change value, and it would even be reflected here. So that's the connection we have right here. So at this point, we were passing the value from text field to our portal. Then we subscribed to the value change topic. And within value change, we simply set our text field once again to the result of this function. So that's the way to communicate. Now, what's pretty cool is that I could actually even capture an image now. So let's use one from the photos here, pick this one, and oh no, it's not working. Error loading image. The file couldn't be opened because there's no such file. That is interesting. Because this really used to work like 10 minutes ago. Never mind, we're gonna get into the code anyway. So let's try the close view, and the portal is gone. So you already see you could integrate this in pretty cool ways into your application. You could either replace full views, you could also just have little sections replaced. And let's see the development flow, because I really like to see how things work. Now, we have a problem here. For some reason, getting the name is not really working like I want to. So let's try with value.name. And I'm also gonna put in a log statement here. So perhaps we're gonna see a bit more of that. As well, result type base64. Actually, that looks kind of nice to me. We might put in a little additional log message here to log out the image. No, that never worked good if I log out the image. But anyway, what I have to do now is I just have to run a new build. So let's put in something here so you can really confirm this with npm run build. Once again, because I'm using a symbolic link between the build folder here that will be generated in a few seconds and the actual output folder here inside the Xcode project, it works automatically. Okay, build was pretty fast. Now let's hit run again here. I could deploy this now to either the simulator or my device, and let's see. And we actually see that inside here, and we also see the log. So I'm not sure where my initial value went from the app delegate here, the initial context, but I guess that's just me. Most likely the initial context is overwritten here, so I could now just, let's do this. I'm gonna remove the initial context here, and I'm gonna put the initial context next to this cool object. So then we're gonna have name portal as well. And then we should see that the portal app should be right in here. Once again, I'm not sure why this not works, because you already see that the Capacitor camera plugin is actually working. So that's kind of interesting why it's not able to load an image. Yeah, now it actually works. And I found this pretty amazing, because let me explain what just happened. We have an Ionic application code right here. Within Ionic, we're using the Capacitor plugin to get a photo. So I installed the Add Capacitor Camera plugin here inside the project. I don't have any native platform added to the web project. So then I'm using the Capacitor camera, and I'm publishing the result. Now, why is this actually working? Because we need a native implementation for get photo. Well, the answer to that is inside the Xcode project. Inside the pod file, where I also added a pod for Ionic Portals, I also added a pod for the Capacitor camera. And now you see that everything kind of works together in this example. So Capacitor, Ionic, Portals, native code, web code, everything is just coming together, and it really feels a bit like magic to me to send around data between a web view and the actual application, and it works really smooth, and everything that I tested works pretty great. And just to give you a little idea, it of course also works for Android. So I've built the same application with my limited Android skills. I really fought with the fragment stuff. So let's try this, open my portal, there we go. For Android I couldn't make the camera work because I don't know actually why. But in terms of publishing the message between the views, everything worked the same. And I can also show you some Android code. I guess you're not really interested in the layout, which was horrible. But within the main activity, it follows the same scheme. So we register something with a portal manager, we create a new portal, we have our web code copied over to the assets folder, and you see from that little arrow, I've also a symbolic link in this one. Then I got a few buttons here to somehow present this. Really, I just made this work by switching out fragments. I think that's like the way to go to create this. I'm not a native Android developer, and a lot has changed. Well, you can also see from the code, maybe I'm gonna make this, can I do this a bit bigger? No, I can't, thanks. Maybe with this one? No, that's a search. We have the definitions for portal methods. So when we create the portal somewhere here on the button press, we also call link message receivers this. And with this functionality, we're setting up our own class to receive those events published by the Ionic application or by the portal. So we once again have the dismiss, value change, and also the image, but the image stuff didn't really work for me. But also close view and everything else worked pretty good. To make this work, you also have to set up another dependency for Ionic Portals, and once again, to make use of the camera, you usually just have to add, just like we added the pod to the iOS project, now we would add the dependency here. But for some reason, the application wasn't able to resolve this. But anyway, that would be the way to go. And then you have a portal. You can work on this portal right here. Your web team can work on this easily. You can save, you can create quickly a build. Then you just have to restart both your native projects, which might work with a symbolic link, or if you're working really with a bigger team and bigger projects, you might need a dedicated system for that. But once you get this integration really feels, it feels really amazing. Also, the getting started guide was pretty good. Within documentation right here, there's everything you need to know about integrating a portal, using portal plugins, using Capacitor. We didn't look at how to define your own portal API. That's another interesting topic. It's like building your own Capacitor plugins, so I skipped it. You could also, of course, have multiple portals. You could have a different initial context in your application. So think of a SPA where we define the routes or the path up front. Then you could use from different path of your web application something as a portal in your native iOS and Android application with a specific route. So that's pretty cool, I think, as well. All in all, you definitely just need to check this out. I really enjoyed working with this, and although I'm not a native iOS or Android developer, I can already see the benefit that this project Portals brings to your application. And that's it for today. I really enjoyed working with Ionic Portals. I didn't expect it to be that cool, but in fact, I haven't worked with a native iOS or Android project in years. I was a native Objective-C Swift developer a long time ago, but getting back into this was actually pretty easy. For Android, the view, that wasn't too easy, but overall, it felt really easy to integrate portals, the publish, subscribe logic, everything worked just great together. Now, if you also enjoyed this, there are two more things that I recommend for you. First of all, there's a great demo application about an e-commerce store with different portals integrated in different routes. You can grab the full code and check it out. it is a really great example of this portals view, but I found this to be a bit too big for me in the beginning. So I just wanted to show you something really easy. That's why I started with a blank application and just a few input fields, so you can really see and feel the benefit of portals itself. And second, if you want even more information beyond that project, I highly recommend this webinar, which you can access as a replay from Ionic. In that webinar, Matt and Josh are talking about portals for, I don't know, about an hour or 40 minutes. And then they have about like 50 minutes answering questions about the speed of portals and the integration. So if you're interested in portals, you should definitely check it out. Again, from the point of pricing, I think you can get started for free. If you want an enterprise license, I'm not an enterprise company, so I actually don't know about the pricing, but you can contact the Ionic support. If you got any other questions about portals or would like to see more about this, leave a comment below, and of course, stay subscribed to the channel and give the video a like so more people can check out Ionic Portals in the future. I hope you will have a great week with both native and web code, and I will certainly catch you next week. So, happy coding, Simon.